Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode here at Tribal Trades, the daily show coming at you from the great state of Florida. One hell of a drug. And I do want to welcome you to the channel here today, wherever you are tuning in from around the world. We're going to ask the question, are we getting the usual, normal election time dump and then pump scenario? We're going to look at some historical things, and then we're going to look at the charts. We're going to look at the liquidation levels. But before we do that, as always, as you know, if you're a regular watcher of the channel, you know what I'm going to say, smash those likes. This does help to get this content out to more people and does help to support the channel. Of course, love all of those wonderful comments that you take the time to write. I do appreciate that, and I do get back to all the questions that people do ask there as soon as I am able to. And don't forget about the cheat sheet. It is the link, it is the top link in the description of this video and every video, and is my roadmap to crypto success for this bull run. There's a lot of educational resources, links, there is some entries and take profit levels there, some free airdrops, and as well you have the Stocks with Josh Discord. A link is also there, the most amazing Discord on the planet. So if you would love to join me in there, I'm in there daily in the community. You can certainly click that link. That link is also below the cheat sheet in the description, but it's also in the cheat sheet as well. Okay, so we're going to jump into the news, and what do we have here? It's crazy how correlated the Bitcoin price action is to the election odds, and you can see it happening here. Maybe it is really as simple. You get one party wins, there's a pump, and the other party wins, there's going to be a bit of a dump. Although I think if that was the case, I think we would see a recovery. It would provide a better buying opportunity, but certainly I just thought this was very, very interesting. And of course, in US elections, Bitcoin always dumps right before the elections, but look what happens next. And generally speaking, we've seen that sell-off in the first few days of November. Remember, I've said very consistently here, brought to you the stats and the facts of previous market cycles, that we saw the Bitcoin low for November has always been in by the 3rd, but generally the 2nd or the 3rd, but that's always been on a weekday. So I have extended that to possibly seeing a low today on the 4th or on the 5th, okay? So I do think that the low has been in on an average on every year, not just halving years, by an average of the 11th. So certainly we are seeing history repeat a little bit in that way with the dump, but are we going to go lower? Is the low going to be in? Was the low in yesterday? I want to know, was the low in yesterday? And if not, if you don't think the low was in yesterday, what do you think the low will be, and what day do you think it's going to come in? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Certainly we see here a little bit of repeating here in July. We saw a sell-off around the 4th and the 5th, on the 5th of August, early in September, early in October. And are we seeing the same thing, pattern repeat here with a sell-off in November early? Certainly history does point towards the Bitcoin dump before the election and then pump afterwards. And we're certainly not only seeing an election month, we're seeing the dump in the early days of the month and then pump for the rest of the month there. So that's some interesting stats there regarding just the last 4 to 5 months there with Bitcoin trading. And then just lastly, before we get into the charts here, remember the markets are controlled by whales using market makers. They will draw one, shake out pattern after the next to get as many people out of the asset, hoping for lower entries. They will use the election in the same way they did in the last 2 elections, as a shake-out narrative. Don't fall for it. You are ready. Goes on to a little bit more here, and we'll see, what happens. He's saying that the ETF issuers don't want low prices again, so the more likely move is to mark up out of that range. And certainly that would go in hand with the narrative of the Bitcoin low being in by the early part of November, and certainly the dump before the election and then pump. And has it really been that big of a dump? Really, we've come down from these levels, or has more been a bit of a liquidity grab up around 73 down to around that 68. I think we may have wicked into the 67 region there, but certainly as you can see from the liquidity heat map there, we do have more liquidity to the downside there around the 67 the $1,000 level, And then if you come even lower at 66, there still is liquidity, but it's not as high. It's not as high. You can see the levels there at 66 and 67,000. Certainly above price at 70,000. There is way more liquidity to be grabbed there. 72, and all this is over leveraged shorts that have bet heavily that the market Bitcoin is going to go down, and the market makers can move price up to these levels, and these people will be liquidated and lose their money, and that will be like a spot buy of Bitcoin, which will push price even higher. Of course, the opposite can happen to the downside, where if these leveraged longs are liquidated, and you see most of it now has been liquidated here. We saw the big flush out just over the weekend, more of a flush out on late last week, certainly coming down there, as you can see. So certainly, as you can see, there is some liquidity to the downside here. And if we change the time frame here, you can see there certainly still is a little bit to the downside there, particularly that 68, 67, $66,000 level. But on either time frame you look, the highest levels are up at that 70,000, 71, 72, $73,000 level that you can see would be a lot of shorts liquidated. We do have on the 48-hour time frame a lot there right at that 68K level. So we could come back down to tag that again. Don't be surprised if we come down and tag that $68,000 level before jumping back up to 69, 70,000, and then eventually a little bit higher there. But you can move between the time frames. This is a free app. It's called CoinGlass. I do have the link in the cheat sheet, and I did tell you where the cheat sheet was. You can also get it on the App Store. You can get the CoinGlass app on the App Store, so I'd encourage that as well. You can see a lot on the shorter time frame. This does lead me more and more towards a bit of a move back to retag the 68K level there on Bitcoin, and that could be another buying opportunity there on each time frame you have it there. So on the shorter time frame, we do see a move to sweep down to that 68, maybe 67, 66K level. Could be something that happens there based on the liquidity that is there, particularly on the 24 time frame and the 48-hour time frame. But overall, there is a lot more liquidity by far to the upside to be had there for Bitcoin. So we'll keep an eye on that. I don't use it as my sole guide, but it's certainly just interesting to see there these levels that are there for Bitcoin. All right, let's jump into the charts here for Bitcoin as we close this out. And as we can see, the tribal trades trend line strikes again, holding up price here. I've got trend lines all over the show at the moment. This one here has been broken down to the downside. I'll leave it there for now. If we come back and revisit it, could be interesting to see how it responds off that. This other one I extended and has been providing support. Now it's flipped and is underneath price now. And so now it's a little bit of resistance, and we have this other trend line here. Oh, wow, at 68,000. So there's a little bit of confluence there for me. The other trend line that I drew down here at 66,500. That's where would be another place to have an entry. So if you're looking to jump in and add Bitcoin to your stash, dollar cost average strategy here. Certainly we're not in some big red candle dip at the moment, by the way, but certainly as bullish as November generally is in December, certainly some dollar cost average buys here may end up being quite fruitful. Historically have ended up being very good buys for the future, even if we do see some more downside. So where would be the levels that I would look to add? Probably at that 68,000 level around there. Certainly down around that 66,500 level. And then further down, we see the 50-day moving average sitting at 65,300. And just remember, after a golden cross, typically Bitcoin does like to come down and retest the 50-day moving average, where we see the 50 moving average crossing above the 200 simple moving averages. So that would be there at 65,200, but that's going up all the time. So by the time Bitcoin retests this, we could be a little bit higher than that. We have the 200 simple moving average at 63,500 currently. That would be my next area to bid. And then here down at 61,800, the 200 EMA on the daily, which I would expect to strong support. If we come down further to the tribal trades trend line to the bottom, we're down at 60,300. And I wouldn't expect us to go back. Remember, when the October low has been set historically in a halving year, which is about 58,900, we've not gone back below that for the rest of the year. So that would be an area that I would not expect to be breached. So I would think anywhere between 68,000 down to around 61,750, the 200 EMA, and then at the tribal trades trend line, you see a large Lux algo order block around that $60,500 level. So those are the levels to the downside. To the upside, where we could see from here, obviously a move up to take that liquidity at 70 and 71, 72, 73, up to 74,000. This will still be an area. I would think that if you are swing trading, like at 68, you may be able to take some profit off the table at 72, 74,000. But obviously for a hodl bag, that's not an area that I would be taking profit there for Bitcoin. Obviously, I'm very reluctant to take any profits or sell any Bitcoin under any circumstances at all. And so certainly I have made my position clear on that on numerous other videos regarding how I am managing and trading Bitcoin from a hodl position. Okay, well, that wraps it up today. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until the next episode, which is the altcoin show coming up in just a couple of hours, happy trading.